TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 20th. Well, the market giveth and taketh away. The rising MBI, we dipped slightly below the 23%, but held above it for the close. As you can see right there, 37.09 and 37 was the 23%. Again, that's going to become the demarcation point. And as I pointed out, short-term buyers were getting to a extended period, but now you got long-term and midterm buyers in the green and red already spiking up as well. So that had best produce some significant support. Otherwise, when that magenta pivots, it's going to be significantly lower. Not a surprise within the context of what we're seeing, because again, this is that battle between, you've got a lot of people on the on the correct side in general by being short, but it does create for short squeeze opportunities. And when the delta gets too severe one direction, it becomes an easy play for the algos to take advantage. But they can only do it for a short period of time. A day or two is about the maximum in a lot of cases, unless they can build momentum. Now, if we were in a situation where things were rosy and looking sweet, yeah, you'd be able to carry that momentum maybe 4 or 5 days a week, or maybe even 2, like we had done previously in late July and early August, when things weren't as clear as they've become, or at least as obvious in a ever expanding way, that the deterioration is accelerating. And this is always something that the Fed does when it corrects in these situations. By the time they realize it, it's too late. And just like they were late with the inflation setup, they're going to be late when it realized that they've taken too much. And instead of allowing, but again, it's also a problem, because if they wait and inflation continues to accelerate, they get further and further behind that curve, and it becomes increasingly difficult to get ahead of it, which is the whole point of what happened when Volcker did it in the late 70s, for those that can remember, and skyrocketed rates to really quell inflation. But that left interest rates 12, 13%, and it was a difficult time, but it caused a lot of pain, but it did eliminate it. And that allowed for the boom that began in the 80s that continued through Greenspan, um, which then, of course, they go to easy money, and then it reverses the same way. A lot of people somehow realize that the euro it's still got some problems, particularly. Well, it was interesting because I think what the administration's for the U.S. is letting out another 15 million barrels from the strategic reserve, and going to start buying back at 70 a barrel now instead of 80, which, what I mean, compared to when the previous administration wanted to buy it at the 20s and 30s. The math, it's interesting math. It's strange, the things they come up with. It creates a potential for a strong deflationary cycle going forward. And gold, obviously, being in the bifurcated situation it is, the demand for gold is still tremendous in Russia, China, elsewhere around the world, and yet you see it falling, and that just is an indication that the paper market and the derivatives of it, controlled by others, can really manipulate that quite easily when you're not talking about the actual physical, because there's only so much of the physical. And if you canceled those contracts out and actually had to deliver, there just isn't enough to do it. So it's an interesting kind of, I'm not going to call it fake, but it certainly bodes the question as to how much is uh, real versus just synthetic, sort of like the CDOs. You're trading on a percentage value of something that you don't really have possession, just like they did with homes 10 times over. And you wonder why things explode the way they do. Oil, 84 range, right in the middle of ugly. If you break below that 75, things are looking good. Um, but you're still so close to that 90 range that you've got potential problems. And it's not going to change anything. It still creates annualized inflation that continues. It just, when they're looking at their month over month, maybe you don't get the acceleration. You're going to see some of it with this spike having taken place early at the beginning of October. So it's going to certainly affect those numbers going into December. Oh, what a surprise. Rates continue to climb down to 96 here, TLT. Um, exactly within the expectations that we had. The bond market's not getting it wrong. They rarely do. It's just too much money involved there. Bitcoin's still holding flat, so the market was, modestly unchanged there at the 37 range. So it's insignificant from that standpoint. But seeing cryptos affected in the same regard, and so that's an indication that there's potentially going to be some travel to them if things start to change and get difficult. For a 5K, just beautiful action here. The short signals, the brief pops, continuation down. Um, Getting to those lower positive extremes, we still had that 92 that needed to get filled. And what a shock. It actually did. Who knew that such things could happen? I don't mark these things accidentally. Came through, supported right on it, broke down briefly below it, became resistance, and they built up. That was an attractive spot for the algos to start the next move. And that's what they did, and just brought it back up to the original breakpoint. So these two numbers that I had marked from a couple days ago became significant again, simply because that's exactly where the algos took action, and we brought it exactly back to the same spot. Do they make sense to other people? No, because they're not on the even numbers and they're dissociated from it. And that's how the systems work, because they don't pick those even numbers that everyone likes, and that they create their setup when it happens. We can see it from our extreme histogram and move appropriately according to it. So all we can do is just keep trading what we've got. These are excellent swings intraday. It's phenomenal. The levels and the reaction to it are very clean, so no objections to it whatsoever. We'll just keep doing more of the same. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk again later. Look for me on the Skype chat. Anything relevant, I will certainly put on there.